all Palestinians. This is their reality, and their iman, their faith, whether they're Muslim or Christian or whoever, is so, so strong, and that's something we can learn from.
Welcome back to Ways, the realest podcast in the world. I know it's been a while since me and Muhammad have recorded, and all those will be definitely addressed in another episode. But today, as you could tell by the title, we're talking about Palestine and all the atrocities that have been happening across the world. Before I also address Palestine, I do want to send my condolences and my love to Afghanistan. It did have 4 earthquakes, and because of what's happening in Palestine and Palestine, they didn't really get all the attention. So if you're able to donate, able to send your prayers to them, please do. They're still important. They're still part of our ummah. And before we get into Palestine, we have some amazing guests. So I want to introduce them for you. We have Selwa, we have new guests, Ryan and Hira. And we also have Basma, who's been back as well. So guys, welcome. You guys can all say hi.
Hi, sorry.
Alaikum.
Hi,
Thank you for having
alaikum.
me back.
You're welcome. We love you guys, and thank you for coming. Selwa and Basma, thank you for coming back. Ryan and Hira, thank you for coming on and being part of this episode. Muhammad, my brother, how are you?
I'm okay. Pretty much like you said, I agree with your whole sentiment at the beginning. And I want to stress to people that whether you like it or not, whether you know about it or not, at this point, it's probably in your house, it's probably on your phone, it's probably on the internet. And a lot of people don't know about the conflict or the issues. That's why I'm happy that we're happy this episode is happening because we have people who not only know about the issue, but actually give you a better context based on their background and historical roots. So therefore, is presenting it in a way that's very informational and it's not one-sided. There's no censorship that's going to be happening in this episode. So there's no fear on our part. And we just want to present something that the media has not been presenting, that institutions has not been presenting, and also state leaders have not been presenting. And I think through this, obviously the voice and the platform will get out. So that's why me and Osama are very thankful to all of our guests that have attended today because this issue is bigger than all of us, whether we like it or not. And obviously, because of the nonsensical tactics used by people, we have to get this message out. So thank you once again for everyone attending today's episode. How are you, Osama?
I'm good, alhamdulillah, man. Doing well. I can't wait to start this episode about Palestine. Now, I know before the podcast we were talking about how we all found out about Palestine. So I guess to everybody, question goes first. Whoever wants to go first. How did you guys find out? Because I know for me personally, I didn't find out until later. My phone was blowing up because I had no idea Gaza was being attacked. So did you guys find out through a friend, social media? How did the conversation start?
Social media for me. And one of my mom's friends is from Palestine, and she has family in Gaza.
Oh my God. I found out when I was live on TikTok at night. I had no idea.
So I had this follower DM me because she has family living there and she migrated to Oman before all of this happened. So she started DMing me. She's like, "Did you see what's going on in Gaza?" And her family is getting attacked and all. Crazy.
Is it crazy that I don't even remember? I feel like the last couple of days unfolded so fast that, like, I don't know. I feel like, honestly, till now, I feel like I can't even process it to the point that I can't even remember, like, how I first found out.
The way I found out, I was at school and it just started going off on my phone as far as everything that was happening. Initially, when it happened, I was shocked because I just knew the reaction was going to happen. It was going to be very severe, obviously, as we know. And it's one of those things for me, it was just like embracing the outcomes because you already know that people are going to say certain things, the media's going to present certain things, but the response, obviously, we had no idea the wave was going to happen. And that is why that this episode, once again, is very important because people are losing their jobs. People feel scared to talk about this. And as a Muslim, it's just like if we're all united, we're all one body. This is something that should motivate us to talk, should bring us closer, and we shouldn't feel as if we have to hide due to our racial, ethnic, or cultural backgrounds, right? There's a people affected by this, and it's up to us to really show if we love them, right? And that is why this episode is very sincere
Yeah.
because people are saying, why didn't we talk about this 2 weeks ago or last
Yeah.
week? Well, things happen, and it's not something you could just talk about then and there because it's the ongoing situation. And we want to have people, once again, who are informed. And I told Osama this, really. I'm like, because someone messaged Osama and told him, like, why aren't you talking about this? Probably 2 days after.
Hmm.
And I'm like, you can't tell someone how to process such information in real time. Not only because I'm a Muslim, but I don't have anyone that I know from Palestine, like family wise. He has family there. I can't tell him, hey, we have to record an episode right now just because it's the biggest thing in the world. So my intention is like, am I doing this for views or am I really checking on my
Yeah.
brother whose family I know personally, who I love, is going through this, right? So it's one of those things until he's ready, until he wants to internalize it and present it to the world, or he can give that a real
Mhm.
message, then by all means, we'll have this conversation. But I think that's a question I want to ask everyone. Do you guys feel subjected based on who you guys are as people in society that you had to talk about this the day after, or were you allowed to internalize it and then come out when you're ready to speak?
I think the point that you're making is really important, and what people fail to understand is when atrocities like this happen, BIPOC folks, so Black, Indigenous, and people of color, are more so affected than white folks because all of us have a story, right? As BIPOC folks, we come from different varying backgrounds. We've either already experienced things like genocide or we were refugees or whatnot. So, in this situation, anybody who's Palestinian, anybody who's Arab, or anybody who's Muslim should be allowed the grace to process on their own time before they speak on it. And it should not be demanded of them to speak on it because they are internally grieving because a lot of us are being re traumatized, right? So that like demand that you must speak on something immediately, especially right now if you're Palestinian, is inappropriate. You're absolutely right. People should be given the grace to process first.
Well, I think for me personally, like when you brought up the story, when my friend was texting me, I know he did it out of good heart, but like I was at the gym and I'm like, buddy, I'll talk to you after. Like I understand because he was like, you should be recording podcasts. And honestly, the only time we've ever recorded a podcast was the two, I think when Sheikh Jarrah got attacked, and we did a spoken word at the time. That's why what originally, when obviously all you guys know, was this podcast was supposed to be a spoken word podcast. Because in my head, I'm like, Palestine. The topic about Palestine has so many different variations, so many different like factors. Not like 3 4 days ago. Again, my dad specifically remembers in the '60s of him being kicked out of his own house. Like he remembers being kicked out, and his other stories from different, obviously, region from Palestine, right? So the thing is for me is like one, I needed to know what to post and how to address it because a lot of my friends who knew I was Palestinian, who aren't Palestinian, were texting me, and I was obviously trying to like give them like a bit of information. But I really think it's important whether you have a platform or you don't. Like for us, like before the podcast, I was still supporting Palestine. So I was telling my friend, I'm like, I don't need the podcast to talk about it because I'm like, I'm on Instagram 24/7, educating, texting my friends. Even just a small example, when George Floyd got shot and or got killed like a couple years back, the first thing I did wasn't post stories. I texted my friend Mo, texted all my other black friends. I'm like, yo, like, are you guys okay? Because in my head, I'm like, that could be one of my black friends that can go away. So in my head, I was more secured about them. It's like, yo, are you okay? The first thing Muhammad did was like text him. He's like, yo, bro, you good? Like, how's your family back home? Is your family good? And that's how you start up conversations. And going back to your intention, is your intention to gain following? Because I see a lot of people want to gain a following versus actually just like obviously mashallah, like I know Basma Salwa have been doing a great job on TikTok addressing certain situations, or is your intention to like get praise because of what you're doing? So for me, it's like based off your intention.
I'm not Palestinian, I'm Lebanese. And when I found out, I completely switched my lives. I used to do like the TikTok battles every single night, and I couldn't do that anymore. I felt guilty. I felt ashamed. Like, how can I sit here and battle and say, hey, 4 roses, everyone, like, come on, let's do it. Like, I couldn't, absolutely not. And I just completely switched my lives to raising awareness as to what's happening in Palestine. And I'm not there to say, like, come up with a solution. I'm not there to speak on other people's behalfs in Palestine or who have family in Palestine. Like that's not my intention at all. It's to actually help raise voices for those who were silent, for those who were silenced indefinitely. As I said in one of my videos, like their voices are gone, and I have a platform, and I have to use it for good. And the way I think about it is like Allah's going to ask us what we did with our time on earth, right? So there's absolutely no way I'm just going to sit around and watch what's happening and not raise my voice and speak on the truth. And it's getting really crazy, by the way. I lost my account. Like, it was gone. Thankfully, I got it back. But Like it's just insane that there are people out there who still don't see what is happening, even though it's all over social media. Like, how can you miss it? I don't understand that. But that I like, as you can see, like I completely stopped doing my TikTok battles and focusing on Palestine.
I think, Basma, you make a really good point. As someone who's been doxxed multiple times by multiple different groups, your safety is the most important thing. And not everybody has the privilege to just like openly speak, right? And in this whole process, something that I'm seeing that is bothering me is there is a lot of intense video, audio, and imaging that's coming out of Gaza right now, and we have to continue sharing it. If you're experiencing like being doxxed, your safety is at risk. You have vulnerable people around you, like you have children and stuff like that. You have to have an added layer of security and be a lot more careful. And please, please, if you're a BIPOC individual, especially if you're Palestinian, take a break. You have that grace. Take care of your mental health, right? It's not easy to navigate these issues, especially if your family is at risk or your people are at risk. And just going back to the people who are not allowed to take breaks are people in power. So white folks, politicians, celebrities, whatever, they cannot take breaks. The rest of the people, we need to do shift work and take turns in this fight for freedom, because if we all burn out at the same time, that's not going to be helping anybody at all.
I was gonna say for me, it's actually a bit of the opposite. It's not that people told me to speak out; it's that people told me to slow down. And a big part of it is because, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't really talk about, but Zionist threats. Um, like when it first happened, I felt compelled that the first thing that I should do is to try and share it to as many people, to try and let as many people know, because I think a lot of us who have been monitoring the situation in Palestine, we know that it wasn't just going to be one rocket and the thing was going to be done. We knew that it was about to get worse, right? And so the first thing that I did was try to share it everywhere on social media, try to make videos. But at some point, people are saying, like slow down because they're just afraid for my safety. Like I won't get too much into it, but I think this is something that a lot of advocates have to go through, which is trying to see like what is the balance between being able to speak up versus taking care of my own physical well-being from other people and also perhaps mental well-being as well.
I think that leads into my next question, the whole censorship aspect, because anytime's a conflict in any part of the world, we know that most of the time, if it's Western influence, Western dominant, therefore they take a proactive approach to take care of their own self-interest and the state at hand, while other groups, marginalized groups, suffer, have to result with donations or funding and food programs from the UN as a way to move on. With this event, when it all started, we realized that the US was going to have a dominant position, obviously against the Palestinian people. And we've heard remarks from all different politicians, even from the president himself, saying that he saw images of decapitated babies that still hasn't been presented to the public. When you see these things happening from the head of the world, arguably, and it has a trickle down effect where it goes to local politicians, celebrities, influencers, only supporting one side and acting as if the other group, which is marginalized, is not even humans, as if they're animals, because what they're going through is their own self-inflicted cause, as opposed to just accepting what should have been done from 75 years ago, a new society where they're just the second or the other. When you guys see this whole cycle of self-censorship top down, how does it make you guys feel? Does it make you guys feel as if like really people will take such a cause and negate it over money, fame, status, or power? Does it make you feel disgusting about us as humans, or do you expect it based on history itself?
Yeah, it's so disgusting and infuriating, and like it makes me so angry because all the videos I'm posting or comments that I'm posting are getting removed. But when it comes to like the celebrities, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. They're either told by like their managers or whoever runs them,
Mhm.
or they're getting paid to do it. Like I don't know, it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
I just want to mention something about celebrities because a lot of people have been bringing up DJ Khaled's name up of not speaking out. And I'm going to tell you why I don't care, though he's Palestinian, because I've been listening to him since 2005. And he's probably said the N word in Jamaica more times in those times than he's shouted out Palestine. He's teamed up with Sabra years ago, and he got backlash for it. Exactly, the money. So the thing is with me is, why am I gonna care about someone who's never shouted at Palestine? When I hear other people saying I rep Palestine more than Cal does, this is not a contest. Who reps Palestine more? It honestly irritates me because in the end of the day, is like to Sedwa's point, these managers are the ones who tells like, yo, just go put a statement so you don't look bad, or like and make it political. So like both your Palestinian and Israeli fans can be like,
Yeah.
cool with you. So in my head, I'm like, as opposed to even if you go back 2 years ago, but speaking about Khaled again, uh, he got so much hate because of Sheikh Jarrah that he put one post about Al-Aqsa. I'm not sure if you guys remember this, and then like he didn't even put a comment. He's like, "Oh, my home" or whatever. But my thing is in terms of like Muhammad, to add on to your question about if we're being censorship. Even my posts, bro. Like I post a lot of funny stuff. For example, on a normal day, I'll get 300-400 views. Posting Palestine, I'm not going more than 50 views, and because they know, and the media wants to stop it because like now, these presidents and prime ministers, they know social media is being used against them. So like, no matter what you say, no one's gonna believe in it. There's this beautiful quote where it says, "If you watch the news, you're misinformed, but if you don't watch the news, you're not informed." Meaning that there's a lot of people who just want to be first. It's not about being right no more. I just want to be first, so when someone reads it, they know they can click on my link. So I don't think no one cares about being right. You can really tell with all the interviews that have been happening.
I think we need to like not underestimate how much Canada has involvement in all of this as well. There's a certain organization I'm not going to mention because I don't want this podcast to get flagged, but it's full of Zionists, and I do a lot of work with BC politics, and like we're trying to do some like background action. This organization has had a hand in so many political statements to rewrite them to be pro-Israeli. Like, I'm sitting here going, all of my dad's wild conspiracy theories about Zionists are literally coming true. It is mind blowing how much of a pull this organization has and how they are completely rewriting statements for many political people to be pro Israeli or to be neutral. So it's not just the state of
It's
Canada
okay to
to,
be pro-Israeli. You'll get praised for that if you're pro-Israeli. It's like Sarah
yeah.
Jama came out with a statement
Oh,
about Palestine, sympathizing with the Palestinians. Automatically, she gets fired. Like what? How
so she got
now? They
fired.
say,
She
oh, it's
got
not about choosing sides. It's not about you're choosing sides by doing that.
100%. She got kicked out of caucus, and it's stupid, right? It shouldn't have happened. So she spoke out. Doug Ford called her an anti-Semite, and then she wants to go after him for libel, right? Which she has the right to do. Her mistake was in the lens of politicalness. She wasn't wrong. Don't get me wrong. She was absolutely right. She didn't consult with caucus before doing that. And you know what? At this point, like I have zero F's to give. Like she did nothing wrong. So they kicked out a black Muslim disabled member of their caucus for speaking up for what's right. It's
Goes to show
absolute
you what
BS.
hold Israel has over everyone.
I think also like as Muslims, we should be not hating on each other and be strong. Like we should be building up our community because then, when someone tries to attack us, you're like, no, we're too strong to be unbeatable. Like right now, you see the Muslim community is really divided, and you see what's in mosques, you see what's whatever. So it's really important for us going forward after this whole like Palestine thing to actually build our community really up. For example, because I see it like sometimes people may not take it seriously
Mhm.
because you see, for example, certain ethnicities not getting along with each other. But if you're able to get along with each other, you're able to build a stronger community. Then Muslims will not. There's over 2 billion Muslims. There's no way like if we were so united, Palestine would be back immediately. Because who's gonna stop like 2 billion people? Impossible. But I think also it's like the small things do matter when it comes to building your community, being there for each other, helping each other out, giving a helping hand, shouting out where credit is due. I think those are also small points in terms of like then the government like right now the governments are obviously staying quiet and like they're like even if you guys saw the video, Justin Trudeau entered a mosque and he got booed out in Etobicoke. And I honestly, rightfully so, because I'm like, you could have, even if you were in the middle, whatever. I would have rather that than what you said. You could have been in the middle and said, okay, we're gonna like make sure we make a ceasefire or a peace between the two. But you entered a mosque expecting people to vote for you after what you said. Like that makes no sense.
Isn't that insane? He went into like 4 different mosques and they all kicked him out. And then the last one, they booed him and told him off. And he was like, just for the freaking picture. And then shortly after that, makes a post on social media I still stand by Israel's right to defend itself. What are you doing? Do you think we're that stupid? How dare you? I'm so ashamed that I even voted for him. Like, it's disgusting. He's literally kissing us for.
Did you guys hear that he is helping Israeli Canadians, funding them to go to Israel to fight Hamas?
What? That's news to me. All I know is that the U.S. Army made its way there.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the UN yesterday, Canada actually came out and they wanted to turn the whole conversation around how Palestine is like committing atrocities against Israel, and it was completely shot down. You can even read it about it in the news. It was the UN ambassador at the UNGA. So Canada is clearly taking a clear stance against the Palestinians. Like, it's not just a humanitarian stance. It's not just a neutral stance. No, Canada is clearly taking a stance against human rights, and it's disgusting to see it. It's disgusting to see it nationally. It's disgusting to see it on the international stage. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, as a Canadian, I personally feel like my vote went to waste. Not only, like, we have this, and we also have the housing crisis and everything else going on. So it was clearly the wrong decision to vote in someone like Trudeau's government.
You know what? It's not surprising to me because colonial powers will always stand hand in hand with other colonial nations no matter what. And Canada is a colonial state. So the fact that Israel is colonizing Palestine, of course they're going to take their side. Of course they
I
are.
was going to bring up the exact same point. The whole impact about colonialism and how that's happened is no different to what's happened with indigenous, the whole system, residential school, and how that trauma impacted generations, right? So right now in Palestine, when you have a place where obviously the largest open air prison existing, you have an apartheid system existing, you have a genocide system existing, assimilation, like all these things are happening in real time. We look towards the Rwandan genocide in the 90s. We look towards the Holocaust in the 40s. We look towards residential schools as well back in the earlier decades. But all these things, significant factors we learned about throughout human history, is happening simultaneously right now. And what do we do as a society? Those in power, that's not a problem. It's them. Like, it's not people suffering because of different factors, systemic factors. No, it's them. What they're fighting for is ridiculous. So don't worry about it, right? And it just makes me wonder, like, as we know, the Ottoman Empire was the last time that the Muslim Ummah was like united, right? Then you had colonial divide all the lines, and you had these new lines, new territories, and with that, everyone embraced their own nationality. So with that, we separated and we focused on our own instead of us being united. Do you think if there was no such thing as colonialism and let's say Shams, like modern day, like Turkey and all these places were still together, something like this would even happen?
I don't know that much about it, but I just feel like no matter what, as long as the U.S. is in charge of the whole world, there will always be conflicts like this. Like, no one will ever see peace.
I wanted to say, like, when you brought up all the different things that happened in the past, like the Holocaust and everything that's repeating, history that's repeating itself, the thing is, this time we can actually take steps to solve it because we have the internet now. We can spread awareness about it, something that people couldn't do decades ago. And now this may not be the event that changes everything, but this is the first step that we take towards solving all of these genocides that may take place in the future, la subhanallah, that may take place in the future. And that I saw this sheikh talk about why it's good to have the mobile phones in this generation because we can spread awareness about what's going on and don't and not let history repeat itself.
I wish that was. I wish I could believe that. I wish, because here we are. We're on social media. We are speaking out. We are making videos. We are going to protests. People are seeing us. We are coming up with petitions. Yet nothing is stopped. Like they haven't ceased fire yet. You know, they haven't ceased fire yet. Everybody around the world is outraged.
Mhm.
Like, when I saw a video from Puerto Rico and they're out in the streets and they're protesting, I was like, everyone is out there protesting and no one is doing anything. So to me, whether we have social media or not, The governments, the leaders are going to continue to do what they want to do no matter what. Whether it's right or wrong, they're going to do it. We can yell at the top of our lungs for days. Nothing's going to get done. They have their own agenda. They're going to go through with it, and that's it. And it's very frustrating.
I think this is where the point that was made earlier, where as an ummah, we need to be more tactical and more prepared. And part of that is partnering with other communities because Israel is very tactical, right? They're very, very prepared for different kinds of attacks. Look at their social media fund, right? Look at what the hell they're doing online. Basma getting messages that people are being bribed to take Israel's side. Like, it's wild. So one of the things that we lack as a Muslim Ummah is partnering with other community groups and helping them in their causes because they help us in our causes, just like the indigenous communities across the globe, especially across Turtle Island. And if I could take a second, I want to bring that point home because I think that's really important, is what Muhammad was mentioning about indigenous peoples understanding the plight of Palestinians. He really means that because what happened to the indigenous people of Turtle Island is exactly what Zionists did to their own people, to other Jews, right? And I've talked a lot about this on my platforms, and I'm just going to quickly go over it because I think this is a really, really important piece of information. And it's important for people in Canada, especially immigrants, especially Muslims, to understand that indigenous folks are our allies and they are the ones that will understand what's happening. So when Israel was being formed, at that time, and this, by the way, is all white settler colonialism. This has nothing to do with Judaism. This is about Zionism, right? So there were four major groups of Jewish people, right? You have the European Jewish people, known as the Ashkenazi Jews. You have the Sephardic Jews, which are North African from Spain and Portugal. You have Mizrahi Jews, which are the ones that remained in the Arab states. And you have the Ethiopian Jews, the Black Jews. Now, when Israel was being formed, all the Jews were being welcomed to occupy the land, right, from all across the globe. And the Zionist movement, which is made up of mostly Ashkenazi European Jews, and by the way, not all European Ashkenazi Jews are Zionists, but Zionism is comprised mostly of them, and this is where white supremacy comes in. They have held the most power in Israel. So when they were bringing all the other groups of Jewish people in, they were discriminating against them. With the Ethiopian Jews, they were forcibly sterilizing their women by giving them birth control without their consent and without their knowledge. And that same thing happened to Indigenous women here in Canada, especially in Saskatchewan, where the Canadian government forcibly sterilized Indigenous women so they could not have more babies. With the Mizrahi, or the Oriental Jews as they call them, the ones that stayed in the Arab states, the Zionists stole their babies and gave them to other European Ashkenazi Jews to raise. So the 60s scoop that happened here in Canada, that happened in the 50s in Israel. And actually, in Canada and the United States, Jewish Children and Family Services had a huge hand. These were Zionist organizations, again, not Judaism, Zionist organizations that had a huge hand in stealing Indigenous babies here in Canada and raising them. And a really good docuseries to watch to understand what this is called Little Bird. It's about Indigenous children that were stolen and given to Zionist families to raise. And if you want to tie this back home and make it relevant and make community ties with Indigenous folks, go watch Little Bird, and understand that white settler colonialism that happened in Turtle Island is happening in Israel right now.
I'm sorry, I'm not Canadian. Can you like educate me more about what's going on in Turtle Island?
Absolutely. So Turtle Island is a term for North America that Indigenous peoples of North America use. They don't say Canada or USA because those are colonial names. So when the colonizers came to North America, they committed genocide against Indigenous people all over North America. They murdered most of them. Like, there's a very low population now. And I'm just saying that the tactics that the governments back then used and continue to use today, like stealing babies, the child welfare system is just, colonization and residential schools still in action, sterilizing the women, right? All of these different tactics that the Canadian and US governments use against Indigenous peoples here is exactly what the Israeli Zionist government is doing to their own Jewish people. Like, it's not even like they're colonizing Palestine and killing Palestinians, but they also hate their own people. They're also colonizing and trying to eradicate their own people, the colored Jews, right? So the Arab Jews and the black Jews, they're trying to eradicate them because they only want the white European settler Jews to be the ones that are the biggest power. And it's really scary if you put it in that sort of lens.
Also, the way they portray Palestine is like more of an Islamic perspective because obviously there are Christian Palestinians, and I have a lot of Christian Palestinian friends. And one of them, Muhammad, you know her. She's like we grew up with her, and she actually texted me yesterday saying how upset she was because she feels like she's being way more silenced because they're just saying it's a religious thing versus obviously a humanitarian thing. And for her, as a Christian Palestinian, she even said she can't even enter Palestine herself. Like I'm allowed to if I'm able to, but she's not allowed to enter any part of Palestine. And her parents were born there. They have houses there, which someone else is living in it like illegally. So for I think also the way the media is portraying it is all lies. Because I'm like, first of all, if you're a true Christian, you would know where Jesus was born. Two, you would go defend your Christian brothers and sisters across the world, whether it's like India, Pakistan, Middle East. You would go support them. Because I remember one of my friends was telling me he was talking about Christianity, and I told him I'm like, yo, my like family who lives in the like they all live in Jordan, but I'm like they have a lot of Christian neighbors and they get along pretty well. So I'm not sure what the issue is here. So I'm like, you guys go back to other countries and realize, for example, Egypt has a lot of Christians, Jordan has a lot of Christians, Palestine has a lot of Christians, Lebanon has a lot of Christians. So I don't understand the whole thought process of the government when they're like, okay, we're gonna say it's Islamic thing, but I'm like, Arabs back home are like, you're lying. What are you talking about? Like, we get along just fine, thank you very much. No, agreed.
This is white supremacy again, right? Because those Christians are brown Christians, right? The Arab Christians, the Christians in Pakistan, the Christians in Egypt, those are brown Christians. And white Christians don't give a shit about other Christians who are not white, right? And evangelists, especially, they're huge Zionists. And they support the Zionist movement because they agree with the belief that they have to go to Jerusalem and resurrect the third temple of Solomon in order for Jesus, peace be upon him, to come back onto this earth. So the reason that they're being silenced more is they don't want people to know that there are people of their own faith being affected, right? Because they're not white. That's literally what it is. It's because they're not white.
It's incredible thinking about this because, like we talked about, white supremacy, colonialism, like all these things tied together, right? Even capitalism. The whole point of just taking over a place and settling within that place, it's like there's a lot of resources that we could use to build up our own agenda. And through that, the settlers, like those who actually live there, not only going to remove them through assimilation, we're going to erase their culture, identity, history, and historical lineage. So therefore, they have no ties. So when you think about indigenous people, they were there first, but over time, as Canada became a nation, solidified itself in different aspects of society. Now, when we go back, we're trying to figure out who's really indigenous. Is it the white settlers or is it the indigenous people? Because those who are indigenous here are trying to find out where they came from. So it's incredible when you link it back to Israel and Palestine because this has been happening for so long that because of the occupation, because of the dominance they've had, because they've been able to establish themselves as a state over these past few decades, those on the outside, people who don't know, can't even tell who are actually indigenous and who's the settler. So it shows you how all of these things are very interchangeable and how it affects people's people's appearance about what is real and what's not real and what's actually authentic versus what's fake, right? And these are layers and nuances that we have to be very careful of and be able to see. So therefore, we do not get afflicted by it as well when they present all these tactics of how these people are just like trying to settle in a place that was the home for them the whole time.
I think we have to be very, very careful when we talk about indigeneity because just because you're indigenous doesn't mean that you can't be a settler. And a very good modern day example of this is what's happened in Liberia. So the post Pan African slave trade, right? Once all of those folks were freed, in just in our recent history, The United States of America traced back the lineage of some Black people, Black African Americans, to that region. And then they sent 16,000 of those people to go and live there. And they colonized that space. Yes, they were indigenous to that space, but they hadn't been there for generations. And the other indigenous tribes were living there peacefully in harmony. So the United States tactfully sent back all of these Black Americans to colonize Liberia, and they're having the same issues right now. So just because you claim to be indigenous to a place does not mean you have the right to occupy that land in modern day times, especially if your people haven't been there. And you can be indigenous and still be a colonizer to your own land.
Now, one thing I actually definitely want to talk about is the whole aspect because when we talk about a situation like this, very tense, very conflicting, and people don't know what the difference is because it's so one-sided as people might see. So when we talk about Zionism and Judaism, obviously we know they're two different things, but a lot of people on the other side might say as a counter argument that we try to say it's the same thing. We don't want to separate it, and we're trying to hold everyone that's a believes in Judaism, they're Zionists. And obviously that's not the case for us. But for those who don't know, can you explain the difference between Judaism and Zionism and why these two separate things for us we do not believe they mix, and obviously we do not hold people accountable who believe in Judaism as those who are Zionist.
I don't think Judaism asks for people to commit murder. I don't think, because like I've spoken to a lot of Jewish people in person at protests and on my live. They're like, this is not our religion. Like, we don't believe in this. We don't believe that we're gonna take over a land that we claim to be ours, like our birthright to live there, but kill every person in your way. They don't believe in that at all. I don't know. I don't want to speak too much about it because I'm not that educated on it, but that's just my experience speaking to Jewish people. They're like, we're not Zionists. We don't believe in what they're doing. We don't claim them at all. That's not our religion.
Saying that Zionism is Judaism is like saying the KKK represents all of Christianity. Zionism is a branch of Judaism that is very, very extreme and that is based in white supremacy, right? So if you talk to Jewish folks, and same as Selwa, I've spoken to many, they are very much against what's happening in Israel. They're actually, a lot of them are completely against the state of Israel because in the Torah, and this is something I've been talking to a rabbi about, in the Torah, the Jewish people are exiled from having their own land, right? So they have this land of Israel that's supposed to be theirs, but on this earth, they're not supposed to have it because of the actions that that community took, historically. So Israel shouldn't exist. It should not exist. There was already Jewish people living there in harmony with the Christians and the Muslims. And yes, there was turmoil and that happens everywhere. But actual Judaism is completely the opposite of what Zionism is. They're not allowed to pillage. They're not allowed to commit genocide or kill. They're not allowed to occupy land like that. They are an exiled people. They're not supposed to do that. And if you actually look at the history of post-Holocaust where Jewish people tried to make settlements, there are settlements of Jewish people all across the globe because that's where they tried to create this land of Israel, and they were just unsuccessful in other places. And unfortunately, Palestine is what was handed to them by the British and the UN groups. So Zionism and Judaism are not the same thing, right? Jewish folks, mad respect for them. The ones who know their religion, the ones who are against Israel and Zionism, so much respect for them. Zionists, well, you can just imagine what
I
I'm
don't
going to
know
say
how
about
true
that.
this is, but I heard that Israel was supposed to be in Argentina.
It was supposed to be in Ethiopia, and it was also supposed to be in it was, if you look into it, Susu, you'll find that Israel was actually, there was like multiple countries that they were planning for it. The closest they got was Ethiopia, and then even the Ethiopian government was like in allowing them to go there, allowing it to be a Jewish state, and they actually refused, and that's why they chose Palestine.
And they refused because of white supremacy. They didn't want to be where Black Jewish people were.
Yeah, these poor Palestinians took them with open arms, not knowing what's about to happen to them for the next 75 years plus. It's just so sad.
Osama, how are you holding up? I know you're like the only Palestinian on the panel. I just want to make sure you're doing okay.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm good. Honestly, like another day, even though I'm not from Gaza, obviously still hurts seeing like your own people being like killed and like seeing the video. Someone I was actually talking to one of my friends. She's like not Palestinian, but she was saying how hard it is to look at the videos, like with the kids dying, or like there's one video with the little baby had no head, which was like so hard to see. But honestly, like the way I look at, if you're asking an Islamic perspective, obviously I know they're all shuhada, they're all martyrs. So it's like, you hope that they're all like fighting, they're all warriors, and I think that for me, no matter what difficulty I go through, I don't think I'm gonna feel the difficulty the actual Palestinians living in Gaza, they're living even the occupied Palestine because of what they have to go through. So for me, alhamdulillah, is like, as this is why I think I want to be so successful, because I want to like back my people up and back the Palestinians. So when they need reinforcement, I'm always there for them. Even though like one person can't do something, but it's still like for them they could be like, wow, this person did so and such and such. But for me, all I could do right now is obviously make dua and obviously like continue with whatever. But I also know Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is like above us, and He's obviously not gonna leave anybody like in the situation. So obviously we do know victory is near. But also, I could tell you on an Islamic perspective that whether you want to believe it in a religious standpoint or not, Israel days are over, because you can't have that much power, and especially when ego starts going in your head, you start losing control. And eventually, when you have so much power, you start going down and you start collapsing. Because even, by the way, there are protests right now happening in Israel for Benjamin Netanyahu to step down.
That's why he's like, "See, I'm here to protect you. Look what Hamas did to us." And I'm like, he did that on purpose. He's just trying to divert the spotlight off of him.
Exactly. But the thing is, you'll
And
never see American media talking about that. Where like you see it on Al Jazeera, you see it on any other news in the Middle East or like in Africa, and like, yo, so and they're protesting and it's been happening before. They've been wanting him out for years. It's not like this is like new. They've been wanting him out for years, like all these protests. But as you said, Selwa, he's just using like Hamas or like the Gaza as an scapegoat for him to be like, because obviously when you're in war, like you're not gonna leave presidency or whatever. Obviously, you're still gonna be where you are in place. But for me to answer, I guess to answer your question, Besma, one, it makes me happy to see non-Palestinians obviously standing up, whether you're Muslim or Christian, doesn't even matter. But like to see other non-Palestinians, and I see it more so now than Sheikh Jarrah, like a lot of other countries even standing up. Obviously, makes me feel good. Also, too, to Hira's point, I think it's also important for Muslims and like whatever, like when you see like your Muslim brothers and sisters are like being affected with, no matter where you're from, like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Egypt, Lebanon, you go stand up for them, because they're doing also their best to stand up for you, for Palestine. So I think it's really important that you don't just say, oh, because I'm such and such, I'm not gonna go help this country. Like, no, go do it, because there's a lot of other people who are helping out, standing up for your cause. And I think it's really important that if it's a cause you care about and someone's from that place, go ask them, educate yourself, and go post about it. So I do believe that we are in the right direction, inshallah. But yeah, that's all I can say.
You know, I wanted to like add to your point because you said that yeah, pretty much you quoted an ayah from the Quran, Inna nasrallahi qareeb, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's victory is close. And I think it's important for us as a community to always have high hopes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what He can do for us. Like, I'll give you guys an example that happened today that a lot of people didn't foresee coming. So the reason why Israel was actually throwing heavy airstrikes on Gaza is because it was part of their military plan all along. Their military plan all along was to, you know, pretty much bomb the shit out of Gaza and then go into the ground operation. So actually enter Gaza through the ground operation. And they started that 2 days ago. Now, what a lot of people don't know, because again, Western media didn't report on it today, happened today, is they did try to go in with the tanks, but they were unsuccessful for a couple of reasons. The first reason was because of actually their own wrongdoing. Because of all the bombings that they did, the houses and everything was obstructing their way in order to actually be able to enter Gaza through ground troops. And by the way, this is not the first time that armies have done this. It's happened in the past too, historically. So clearly they haven't learned from other regions. So this shows you how, when Allah says they plan, but I'm the best of planners, right? They tried to plan, they tried to go in and take over innocent people's lives, but they were unsuccessful. So they actually had to go back today.
as if they forgot they've been throwing missiles all this time. Like, how are you supposed to
Exactly.
get through?
Mm-hmm.
Subhanallah. I have zero words, and honestly, but I do think it's like they're doing their own wrongdoings is affecting them negatively. So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
And
Allahumma ameen. I hope obviously all the Muslim Ummah like protected, and like one day obviously, but one day sooner we're able to reunite and be as strong as possible. Because obviously, like you see, obviously if you go back in time, or like how France colonized Syria, Lebanon, and obviously Palestine and Jordan were colonized by the British and other Middle Eastern countries were colonized by other people. But that's the thing, is they put borders on us. That's why sometimes I see like a lot of a lot of my like Arab friends, like sometimes like they'll talk bad about certain other people. I joke around about it sometimes just with my friends jokingly, because they'll always like take shots at me as a Palestinian. I'll take shots at them depending where they're from. But I think realistically, if you actually mean it, you should actually go check yourself, because you're still your Muslim neighbors. You're still people who have lives. It's okay to joke around amongst your friends about like where you come from, whatever, like whose food tastes better, whatever. All jokes aside, but I really do believe it's important that you don't, like, I heard people saying, for example, I would never be friends with this person because he's from this Arab country. I'm like, why, bro? I don't get it. It's like just because your parents were beefing does not mean you guys can't be friends. Like, you guys can find common ground. At the end of the day, is like that's what the enemy wants. They want us to fight, so then they'll be like, they don't see the common cause. They don't see that they're trying to like, and even Israel has plans of entering Jordan, has plans of entering other countries and expanding, because to them they believe that also like Egypt, Jordan, all these other countries belong to them. So they want to go away with around the Sham. Yeah, it's true. Like, there was one of my friends sent me an article, and I already believe this. They want to enter Jordan. They want to, like, they believe part of Egypt is also there. So for them, they want to colonize so many other Arab countries. That's their plan from a long time ago.
I got a message today from a Zionist saying, um, when we're done with Palestine, Lebanon is next. Don't think that you guys are going to get away with it.
Yeah,
Just prepare yourselves.
they want to enter every other Middle Eastern country, and that's their goal.
And at first he was like, you guys expect Hamas to come and bomb us and kill our people and not expect us to retaliate? We're going to
This is
retaliate plus more. We're going to make sure that we eliminate Palestinians off the face of the earth. And don't think that Lebanon is going to get away with it. Lebanon is next. Well, what did Lebanon do to you? If this is about what happened on October 7th, what did Lebanon do? Why are you even bombing them right now? Like, what are
Yeah,
you trying to
that
do? People are
also.
fleeing Lebanon. They're planning
They're also.
like my dad. Like, I my dad back. He was supposed to come in November, but as soon as I heard the airport's gonna close and they're bombing, my dad told me he can hear and feel the bombing, even though we don't live
Yeah.
in the south of Lebanon, but we're very close. My dad's like, yeah, like they're planning on closing the airport. I was like, okay, well, you need to get out of there. He's like, no, just wait a little bit, just wait. I didn't listen to him. I called up the lady. I'm like, get my dad here as soon as he had 3 days to pack his stuff and come. I was like, sorry, Bobby, you're not staying there. I'm not gonna risk that.
They're
But I don't understand if this is about October 2nd and them retaliating, as they say, or defending themselves. Why are you bringing Lebanon into this?
but they're also
Why? What
stopping
did
they're
Lebanon
also
do?
stopping Egypt from like aiding Palestinians with food. Like, they're making it way harder. Also, I do gotta say our Arab leaders have to stand up way more and wake up, because these guys are always staying quiet, especially the Saudi government, the Oman government, the Qatar, the Khalij. All those guys have to stand up because they're always quiet when it comes to those things. That's what it is. When people build fear in you, you don't speak up.
They're afraid. They can't do anything. Not
Exactly.
they can't, even if they wanted to.
No,
They
exactly.
talk and make statements. Warning, we're warning you if you do that. They're doing it. Where are you?
I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes
I call
I'm
bullshit.
not gonna lie. Sometimes when I talk to my dad, or I talk to other like Palestine who are born in Palestine and live in Palestine, sometimes like I feel the pain that they're like, the fact that they were forced to leave home, and the fact that like we wish we fought back. Like, the story that they hear, you can tell they're coming from a lot of pain. So sometimes in my head, I'm like, I understand their pain, but also for me, like, sometimes I don't bring up a subject with my dad too much, because I know like it irritates him that it's like the city he was there is he was telling me, is all wiped out, it's all gone. Like, doesn't even exist no more. Like, his house he grew up in is gone. His whole village, like his family owns a lot, like that whole area he grew up in. His family was like, well, before my dad was born, they were really well off. Even my mom's side of the family, someone else is living in their house is like where her older sisters grew up. So I can honestly tell you that the Arab leaders have to wake up. Everyone's bought by the American dollar. Even like earlier on, like Selva, not Selva, Basma was like kind of like talking about money, how Cal sold out. But I think realistically, whether if you're not Palestinian, you are, and you have a platform, speak about it, educate people, because adding one voice to the solution is important. And I do it all the time. A lot of my friends were asking me questions about Palestine, and I was answering their questions. I'm like, if you're gonna be educated, I'll let you know. But I think also our Arab leaders have to stop being scared and stop living in fear, because it's actually irritating me when I see, for example, certain stuff happening. Like, why aren't you guys speaking up? The people who are living across the world are speaking up. Your people are speaking up. You start speaking up. Do not be afraid.
They're not speaking up because they don't want to anger the US, right? So Israel is the reason the US backs Israel so hard is because Israel is their only ally in the Arab states. And someone, this like black woman on TikTok, put it the best way. She was saying that Israel is the new girlfriend of the US, right? And the
Okay.
US backs Israel because one day they're gonna come in and say pay up. They want to use Israel to invade the other Arab states to get more access to land, resources, and oil. So that's why the
And
Arab states won't speak up
I've
because
always said this: if the Arabs were smart, I would not give a single resource to anybody because the Middle East has a lot of resources. I would not give a single resource. I'm like, you can go buy from somewhere else. But then again, it just shows you that, like, I don't know. Again, for me as a Palestinian, I can't say too much because sometimes, like I obviously speak about the problem, I speak about the issues, but I just feel like at the end of the day is like every Palestinian that comes from Palestine, whether you're Christian, Muslim, or you're Jewish, you have your own perspective on the issue, obviously from what your family subjectively, sometimes also objectively. But I think also it's really important to educate yourself because there's so much to learn about Palestine, even though you're Palestinian from different areas. And there's a lot of people like even like I see Sedwa all the time on TikTok talking about it. I see Basma all the time talking about it on Palestine, educating, and they're both not Palestinians. So I think it's really important that when you do go in, learn a bit, go learn a bit because the news is trying to manipulate everybody. Again, yes, it's cliche, but it's true. That's why, like I always said this. I even said it. I even said this to Mo. If recently Drake drops an album, and I'm just gonna say this quickly, and he said he's not gonna be dropping music for a couple years. So then immediately everybody researched why he's not dropping music. Why isn't it the same thing when something happens in Palestine? You don't research. Go research. Like I'm not gonna believe the news immediately when they say such and such happened. No, you even as a Palestinian, as an Arab, go research what's happening. Why is it about celebrities we're the first to go research what actually happened? Something happens in like across the world. Who gives a shit? We don't care.
They're lazy. This generation is lazy. That's why. They can't even watch a video that's longer than 15 seconds without having the urge to scroll to the
Yeah, it's
next.
very true.
They can't. They don't have critical thinking. They have a hard time thinking. Everything is readily available to them, you know? But they just don't care because it doesn't revolve around them. It doesn't affect them. So why should they care? Because I get that a lot. Why are you protesting about something that's happening on the other side of the world? Excuse me? What do you stand for? Do you not have any morals? Do you not have empathy for humanity? Like I don't understand. Why would of course I'm gonna be protesting. It's my right to protest. I'm protesting because the country that I live in right now has a hand in what's happening in Palestine. And you would be delusional if you don't think that our government is also responsible to what's happening. Of course, we're going to protest.
the critical thinking.
I also just wanted to add, trying they're trying to get other people against us. Like, if you were a part of the LGBTQ community, why are you supporting them? If you were to live in Palestine, they would alienate you right away. Or if you're black, right away, you think they're so racist, they hate you because you're black. Like, why are you defending them if you can't even live one day there? Also, they'll kill you.
That one girl on TikTok, the mismarriage is halal. Mismarriage is
Oh my
halal.
God, no, 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 no. Oh my God.
She was making mismarriage is halal. She was talking
Oh,
about
I
how
saw that
Oh no,
video,
she's
bro, and she's
not.
like,
She's not had Osama.
crazy, bro. She was
Don't I can't. My blood pressure cannot handle this right now,
she's like,
Ryan.
black people don't stand up for Palestinians or some shit like that.
yeah. She's just trying to cause hatred, honestly.
What Salwa just said about other groups, there are queer Palestinians. There are black Palestinians. There are Palestinians of other intersectionalities. This whole thing about like, oh, they wouldn't support you if you were queer, if you were black, the whole queer thing, that's pinkwashing. They want you to believe that. I have messages from queer Palestinians who are like, hello, we're also here and we're also being slaughtered. So don't let them divide and conquer because in this cause, we all have to be united.
And it's coming from Americans. It's not even coming from the Zionists, to be honest with you. It's all the Americans who feel like they have any sort of knowledge on what's actually happening. They're just recently waking up. They see what happened on October 7th, and all of a sudden they're all knowledgeable about what's happening in Palestine. They feel like they have a right just because they're American. So that's why they feel like they have, well, because like they just have like this image that like Muslims are racist. I'm not saying that like there are a lot of racist Arabs. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are racist Arabs, but they're using that against the genocide that's happening, like to justify what Israel is doing. Like if you're a part of the LGBTQ community, I don't understand why you're supporting them. You like they would kill you, or if you're black, like they hate you, or like it's just complete nonsense, you know? It's frustrating because like that's not the point right now. Nobody cares about your sexuality. Nobody cares about the color of your skin. There are people dying. There are people that are going to sleep not knowing if they're gonna wake up in the morning
Yeah.
Like, do you not see what is happening? I don't understand. Like, focus on the real problem here. Ceasefire. That's what we're trying to ask for. Allow the people to breathe. Allow the people to mourn or to bury their loved ones, like to rebuild, to figure out where they're gonna sleep next. They don't even have food or water or electricity, and you're here coming up saying, "Oh, you're part of the LGBTQ community." You know, are you serious? Is that how short-minded you are? It's just sorry, I talk to so many people at night, and it's just so frustrating hearing these things.
In the beginning of the conversation, you said that one of the reasons why you're speaking out is because you're speaking for those who are silent. And I think we've talked about so many aspects, especially on the trauma, the grief, the pain, the suffering. One thing we should talk about is the resilience of the Palestinians and how their resilience through these emblematic times have somehow risen an awakening within all of us to talk about this, be united. And I saw one imam, he said that like even though what's going on is horrific and tragic, their resilience and how calm and peaceful and you see these sentiments where someone could have someone who passed away and they say the most beautiful of words, very simple, about what they're lost, even though it's tragic and sad, is doesn't mean anything because Allah knows and therefore I accept. And there's a wisdom behind everything. And to hear how these people are saying such beautiful words, whether it's a child, whether it's an elder, whether it's an adult, makes you think, who are these people? These people are a gift from God. They are a gift from God. To be honest, it's probably their
Yeah.
suffering are the reason why, one of the few reasons why we're united, kind of united as an ummah. So through their suffering, give us hope, give us some love that we might not have amongst ourselves because we're so busy with our own lives, but their pain and what they have to go through being occupied 24/7, different checkpoints, and the insufferable amount of conditions that we do not know about or we do know about somehow allows us to be together. So it makes me I want you guys to talk about the resilience of these people and how beautiful it is to see them be so strong, united, and patient despite the horrific human conditions that has been onset to them by the occupiers.
There's actually one video which I reposted on my story about this guy that lost his home, and he was still saying Alhamdulillah, like thank God for everything, right? Which puts a lot of things in perspective when you think about what you go through personally, and how sometimes you complain and like, oh, why is this happening to me? Like this guy lost his home, lost everything. Obviously, his family was kept safe, and he was still saying Alhamdulillah. So to me, it shows that like one, if you're gonna learn anything from this, again, everything is a lesson in life. Learn how they're still continuing on with life no matter what is like happening against them. Like they're not gonna give up. They're still fighting. They're still having their faith in God that things are gonna happen going forward, and like hopefully things will get better. To me, that just shows like a lot of enlightenment, a lot of the fact that they're not giving up, they're not losing faith, which one that's what stood out to me personally.
I agree with you 100%. I feel like they've had to evolve to the hostile environment that they've lived. This is their day-to-day life. We're not it would be so tragic and traumatic for us because we didn't grow up there. We don't know how it's like to live there. So I feel like from the day that they were born into this environment. So it's just like another day for them. They've had to evolve to that hostile environment that they live in. And you're so right. I personally feel like Allah puts a different kind of iman in them, a different kind of iman, because there's no way is that going to happen to me and I not freak out. You know, there's no way. I feel like Allah, like mu'jize, like it's a miracle. Allahu a'lam. I'm just saying this. Like I feel like that personally, like Allah has put some sort of miracle inside of them for them to say Alhamdulillah to the most tragic thing that could happen to them. And another thing my mom has been telling me, because I literally cry to her every single day, she's like, Salwa, Allah is bringing his angels to heaven. Allah is filling up Jannah with these martyrs, with these innocent people. Allah is filling up Jannah and they will embrace us. They will be waiting for us. And that like makes me so emotional because Like, can you just imagine all these little children flying up to heaven, and they're just up there with Sayyidina Ibrahim, just playing. I don't know how people don't like. I don't know how people can just see what is happening and be okay with it. I don't understand. And my mom's right. These are angels. They're being embraced right now up in heaven. Honey unto them. Honey unto them. You know? But it's still so hard for us to like grasp that because we don't live in their environment. We don't know. Like them, they know that they're shahada. They know they're going up to heaven right away. And just good for them.
I think there's a silver lining to every cloud. Uh, because of all of this that's happening, and you see them doing dhikr even in their last moments. They're just remembering Allah. They're reciting all their du'as before they die, and they're raising their fingers. They're saying the shahada. It's beautiful because everybody on TikTok is seeing, and then they're saying, "Wow, this is the level of iman." And then you see non-Muslims researching into Islam, and you see people actually converting into Islam when they see the level of iman that the Palestinians have. And I think that's the silver line to every cloud. Of course, it's sad that thousands of people are dying, but we should also look at some of the positives that there are new people who are researching into Islam because of the level of iman that they see in the Palestinians.
I always say my iman is so weak because all I've done is cry. Like since October 8th, like all I've done is cry. And then you see the Palestinian people and their iman is so strong and they really truly are the people of Allah. Because just like Salwa said, like I saw a video yesterday. I don't know if the gentleman was a journalist or if he was a medic or just a volunteer, and he just found out that his entire family was eradicated by a bomb, and he was shaking and he was crying, rightfully so, but he was making dua. And I was just thinking to myself, like, if I found out right now that all of my family members were eradicated, I would not want to be on this planet. I would also join them, you know? Like I don't think I could handle that. But the Palestinians, all Palestinians, this is their reality, and their iman, their faith, whether they're Muslim or Christian or whoever, is so, so strong, and that's something we can learn from.
Ryan, I have a question for you. Um, Based on everything that's happened since the beginning, and I want to ask you, like, because most people, when they see this video, they're not going to assume that you're Muslim. And when they find out you are Muslim, they're going to be like, why is he a Muslim? But as they hear you talk, okay, this brother there has a beautiful voice and he's very informed. Can you speak about your story with Islam? Because a lot of people are going to be asking this Ryan person, is he a Muslim was he born a Muslim? Was he not? And how that all ties in as far as your viewpoint.
Okay, so about 2 years ago, I was Catholic. Okay, so I'm in Singapore now. Singapore is about 15% Muslim. Not a large community, but the school that I went to, I don't know about your education system, but in over here we call it secondary schools. I think it would be like a high school for you guys. Yeah, secondary schools in Singapore. And the class that I went to just nice had like a little group of Muslims that I mixed with. And then as a Catholic, I had this idea of heaven and hell, and I wanted to let those Muslims go to heaven because they were my good friends. So I wanted to let them go to my heaven. So I started to research more into Islam to try and disprove Islam. And about 1 year later, I converted to Islam.
MashaAllah.
That's amazing.
That's
SubhanAllah.
beautiful.
Sorry, can I just do one more
Yeah,
thing? This literally just proved my point. 25 minutes ago, someone commented on my video, Palestine will be destroyed no matter what. The world don't need terror university in the Middle East, teaching 5-year-olds to kill Jews. I was an IDF and I was serving for the IDF for 6 years and I've seen everything. I had 6-year-olds throwing stones at me and they didn't even know why. They were told by their parents to kill me. This like right now, 20, 25, 24 minutes ago. Like
Can I make a point to this? This pisses me off because when people, when we talk about Palestine, the first question you get asked do you condemn Hamas? And honestly, cut this out if you think it's not going to help your podcast. I stopped saying I condemn Hamas. You know why? Because Hamas only exists because of Israel. So when you have 6-year-old children throwing stones at you, it's because you are trying to kill them. You have a gun. You have weapons. You're pointing at a flipping 6-year-old child, and all they have is rocks. And you're like, "Oh, the 6-year-old child is gonna kill me with a rock." Like, where is your critical thinking, right? I know someone, my coworker, her friend's husband is ex-IDF. Okay, he almost got put in jail because he didn't want to be a part of the IDF. He was beaten up. And now that he's not there anymore, he speaks out. He's like, half the people that are there are forced to be there and they don't even want to be there. So even in Israel, there's conflict. They don't want, so there's a lot of Israelis who don't want this to happen. And they tried to overthrow the government because Netanyahu wanted to create Israel as a fascist state. And they didn't want that. So when they come out and say, "Oh, we're teaching our kid," what the hell do you teach children about the enemy who wants to eradicate you in order to protect themselves? If you see an IDF soldier, run. If you see an IDF soldier hurting somebody else, try and help them. That's not terrorism. That is people trying to survive.
They're gaslighting and they're projecting, because that's exactly what they do. They're the ones that are teaching their children that the Palestinians over the Iron Dome across, over that little gate over there, that they're the ones that are trying to kill us. So we must fear them. We must kill them. If you see them, they are not your friend. They are your enemy. They are the ones that are doing this. So they're gaslighting us, and they're projecting. That's exactly what's happening.
Some people deserve to drink water. If we see someone giving someone else poison, and we know it's poison, and we know that it's going to kill someone in the worst of ways, do not defend it as to why they deserve to drink poison when you are drinking water, the highest quality, the most nourishing, while the other is consuming something that's erasing not only them, but their ethnic as well. And this is something that no matter what happens in your life, money does not mean anything. Money comes and goes, it fades away. We're all heading in the same direction. Whatever your beliefs are, is the ground. We're all going to be buried. So, whether you think that defending that is right, by the time you're gone and you cannot defend or answer for yourself, who knows? Maybe it might be your children, your great grandchildren will look at you as a complete failure of allowing people to drink that poison, funding those people to drink that poison, when you could have denounced, helped alleviated, and made a solution that would end this problem once and for all. So know that we are humans. We're not complex, we're complicated because of our own self-interest. So instead of focusing ourselves, we gotta focus on each other and figure out how we could all come together. So therefore, it's more smiles and less cries. Because with more cries, especially in a way that's so outrageous and so systematic, what's happening with two Palestinians, we must know that everyone has a right to drink water.
You guys thought we were done? I don't think so. We still gotta wrap it up. Please follow me at Kusa300. Follow my co-host Muhammad at Muhammad.global. Make sure to follow our page at Instagram. Also, make sure to subscribe to all our platforms. We drop every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Thank you. We'll see you next week.